Hello.
That's it.
We
Hey,
can hear you now.
Hi, Stuart. How you doing?
Very well, thanks. Yeah, yourself?
Yeah, not so bad.
Good, good. Long time no see, Mr. Bailey.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You look fabby.
We started off together, Duncan. We were, well, Ronald was my senior in,
wow.
In rank and status at the film school. So, but yeah, we were there at the same time.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Stop there.
So this is a real alumni reunion.
Yeah.
Well, I think Caroline and I were in similar year groups. I graduated in 2010.
Yeah.
Yes. So
when did you graduate, Caroline?
It was December 2010.
Yeah. So I think you were the year below me. I studied editing, so I graduated from the editing course. Yes.
Yeah, I remember seeing you about wandering around.
Yeah. I've never left. I just get stuck there. It's the problem with the NFTS.
I don't think nobody left. I mean, we're all going back.
We're still there.
That's the magic of the NFTS. You're always welcome.
Yeah, well, we didn't. None of us felt qualified to leave. That's what you mean. we were still waiting for someone to teach us
all wondering for that first step into the industry. Right. So let me do a quick introduction. Hello, I'm Duncan Bruce. I'm the alumni manager and graduate of the NFTS, and we're joined today by Caroline Singh, Ronald Bailey, and Stuart Wilson, who are all graduates of the sound course in different forms. I think the name changed over time. Caroline is the youngest of our graduates. I hope Ronald and Stuart don't mind me saying that. So she is kind of 10 years out from the school, and her most recent credits include being sound recordist on is it Netflix drama?
Yeah, Netflix, The Duchess, and Apple Trying.
And you would also have seen Cuckoo, which is the BBC comedy, which Caroline was sound recordist on.
Very good, very good.
And then we've got Ronald, who's had a huge career, and Ron all right. A huge career. I think it's a huge career looking at those IMDb credits. And most recently, you'd recognise Pennyworth, which is the sequel to Gotham, the TV series. So that is very, very popular at the moment, which Ron recorded. And Stuart has done Star Wars, Bond, 1917, and most recently this year, he won the Oscar and BAFTA for his work on 1917. So he's not doing too shabby. He's paying the bills, we think, as it goes.
Very lucky.
Yeah. So my first question, if you don't mind, to you guys, is going to be, what was your journey to the NFTS? How did you get an interest in sound, and why did you decide to apply to the school? So if I'm going to start with Caroline, if that's okay.
Yeah. So when I was at school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something in technology, in technical background with film and television, but didn't know what to do. And the careers advice was go and do some admin at the BBC, which wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. So anyway, I fell into an IT company and ran programs on mainframes, doing technical support and stuff, and did that for 10 years and just got sick of it. And I was nearly 30 and just wanted to go and do what I really wanted to go and do, but trying to work out what that was. So my first thing to do was I went to the NFTS website and looked at the courses there, and then everything about the sound recording diploma just ticked every box. So it just sounded, that's exactly what I wanted to do. But doing a course is one thing, and actually working in the industry is another thing. So whilst using my holiday entitlement in my IT job, I went and worked for free on a couple of weeks on a low budget feature that was being made in Oxford. And I just fell in love with doing sound for that, and I thought this is exactly what I wanted to do. So the following year, I managed to convince my company to make me redundant and applied to the NFTS and got in, and it was the best thing I ever decided to do was to do that.
Well, that's an awesome story to begin with. Ron?
I can't beat that story, but as Stuart said to you, I'm from way back, so my background was slightly different. I'll start with everyone used to just work on film school shoots back in those days. But my early background was from working on DJing, broadcast, documentaries, you know, in the freelance world. And then I came into the film school. So I'm just shortening that version. So that's basically where I came from. So documentaries, electronics, and DJing is my sort of early background.
Cool. Stuart?
I was, sort of decided I was always interested in sound, and I thought I might try and work at the BBC to get a proper training, or work in a recording studio or something like that. But I started just knocking on doors of production companies and saying, can I come out on a shoot? Can I carry boxes or make tea or something? And eventually I got a call saying, we're doing a 2-day shoot for someone who's applying to film school. They're making a film with a professional crew and they need a sound assistant. So I did that, and then I got onto a film school graduation film as a sound assistant, and which was great. And I didn't get into film school because they said I was too young. I was 19 at the time, and those days they didn't take people to average 25. So I became a trainee on a sort of screen skills type scheme, getting attached to different productions for a year. Then I worked for a year. Then I got fed up working on things that with people who were not really very interested in what they were making. It was just very uncreative stuff. So then I applied again to film school and got in. And at that time we did both production and post-production, as well as a general a few months of general filmmaking, where everybody did a bit of documentary, a bit of camera, a bit of editing, and so on.
So can I ask both Stuart and Ron, was the course one sound course then? And that include re-recording mixing in the dubbing theatre, or was that a separate course?
It was the same. Yes, you did post-production as well as location sound. So actually, you would go on location, shoot your sound, and then take the sound back into the post. So actually, you evolved as you went along.
Yeah, we didn't. I never touched the dubbing console though. I don't know if that would have been possible, but I didn't see it was for me anyway. But yeah, we did production and post. But students were taken in. I mean, for the first 6 months, everybody did the same thing, no matter what discipline you were in, and then you were supposed to specialize, but you were accepted to the school as a sound student. Yeah.
Cool. Well, just to explain to the people watching, there are 2 courses at the school at the moment. There is location sound recording and there is sound design. So obviously we have divided that. By the way, for anyone who wants to ask questions at any point, just use the Q&A box at the bottom. Feel free to ask any questions. So the time at the NFTS, do you think that was key to your career and where you are now? Or do you think it was just a bedrock which allowed you to learn outside of the school? If I start with Caroline again, and we'll go around.
Yeah, no, 100%. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now without the NFTS. The good thing about the NFTS is it takes you in on your merits. One person laughed at me when I said I was applying to the NFTS, and they said, "Oh, good luck with that. You'll never get in." But what they do is they accept you on your own merits and see that if you know what you want to be doing and enthusiastic, then they do consider you. I've learned from I went in knowing nothing, and I came out knowing protocol and sets. I knew because you get so much hands-on with different bits of equipment, how to use different bits of kit. You come out as a really good assistant, and from that, and because the NFTS has such a good reputation with mixers, if you go out to a mixer saying you've got done the NFTS course, they are more likely to take you as an assistant. I contacted after doing the course, I went and applied to mixers, sound recorders, to do the work that I wanted to do as a sound recorder. So drama and comedy I was most interested in, so I applied to good drama mixers and comedy mixers. Started off as their assistant, then moved to be a boom operator for them, and then became a sound recordist doing that sort of work. So yeah, without the NFTS, I wouldn't be doing it.
Cool. Ron?
I mean, I think Caroline just kind of said it all, but basically in the 80s and the 90s, there was like a set of groups you weren't allowed to get in or get out of. So going to the film school helped me evolve into getting into those different groups. I mean, I could have ended up being a boom op working on feature films, but I knew if I went to the film school, I would evolve and be able to become my own self as a recordist.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the NFTS has such a serious standing in the industry that when you go there, I mean, I was already recording sound, I was already earning a living, but I wanted to be more creative and collaborate with people who wanted to do the same. And that was a big draw of the film school process, that you're working with, you know, maybe 6-8 directors doing short films and so on. That was exciting, but I think it definitely launches you also into a serious market, because it's very specific, and in, you know, feature films, high-end drama and so on. I know that if I
Stuart, you've frozen on my screen. I don't know, anyone else?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, hello, you back?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, just thing crashed. So
Kids playing Xbox.
if I'm looking for an assistant, and someone's been to the film school, then I know, one, I know they're serious about sound, and two, I know that they've had some training and they'll be thinking about things in the right way, asking the right questions, and they'll be a useful member of my crew. So yeah.
So Stuart, I know that you have Tom Fennell as one of your assistants, who's a graduate of the school because he was in my year group. How do you nurture that person through their journey to the point where they'll be ready to make the next step to sound recordist?
Well, Tom came as a trainee on a film. I already had a good boom op and a good second boom op.
I think we've lost you again, Stuart, unfortunately. I'm going to go to Ron and Caroline then.
So I'm going to try and pick up where Stuart was trying to say. Okay. So, is he back?
Not
Stuart,
yet.
are you? So yes. So if I'm on a shoot and I get somebody from the film school or somebody who's not from the film school, I know what their backgrounds are going to be in terms of their knowledge, because at the film school you get a vast amount of training, while if you're outside you only get limited training, but you only know how to do one specific type of job, i.e. you know to connect cables, put a mic on, but that'll be it. But if you went to the film school, you'll do the whole range. So if I say to you, record some Atmos, you will know what to do instantly. Obviously, we're a little bit more training, but yes. Stuart, are you back there?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
Cool. That's all right. I was simply saying about the different types, but yeah, carry on.
Yeah. Okay.
So you were saying that Tom came as an assistant and you already had a successful first and second boom op. And what's the career path?
Yeah, well, so he held his own as a trainee. It was a very tough film, and so then I took him on as I think there's a big political question of when someone's a trainee and when they become a fully paid assistant. I think he may have been a trainee on another film, but I tried to get him a bit more money, even as a trainee, and then he became a fully fledged sort of qualified assistant eventually, and then now he's my main sort of second boom and first assistant, and we've done lots of films together. But he's been so busy with me that he hasn't done so much of his own work, but he does still do other jobs, and he would be certainly qualified to do his own stuff as a mixer.
So is that the career path that you follow, that you normally become the second boom, first boom, and then you move to recordist? Is that?
Well, not exactly. I had another person who started as a trainee with me, who became a sort of indispensable assistant, second assistant sound or sound utility. And he's now jumped straight to mixing his own films, because being a boom op is a particular skill and a particular career. And to be honest, in feature films, which is what I do mostly, the boom operators are career boom operators. They're generally not seeing it as a stepping stone to mixing. I mean, some of them do, and which is fine, but certainly it's not something that I mean, you can get a bad sound recordist can get good sound with a good boom operator, but a good sound recordist can't get good sound with a bad boom operator. And it's a serious job, and it takes commitment. And if somebody's just looking over their shoulder thinking, I want to be mixing, then it's not ideal. So it depends on the person. Some people are more suited to mixing and assisting, because as a sound assistant, you're dealing with the comms, you're dealing with setting up the gear, you're dealing with a lot of technical stuff. Whereas the boom operators is more the physical stuff, it's the on-set stuff, it's face-to-face with the actors. And that's it suits different personalities and different physical, qualities in people.
So
yeah, it also depends on which area you want to go in as well. I know in my year group, at least two of them specifically wanted to record documentaries. Therefore, you go straight into doing documentary sound recording and don't even touch boom operating on dramas or features. And I know one person, he went into doing OB stuff, so that's another field completely as well.
So did you guys all leave the NFTS and become sound recordists, or were there other steps that you went through in the sound hierarchy before you got to your final position?
Let me start, because obviously I'm a little bit older. In my earlier time, you had to be a boom op, then to show yourself, and then obviously I wanted to be a recordist, and then obviously after a period, then I took the leap to be a recordist. So but obviously it changed for Stuart and Caroline.
Yeah, I did some boom operating after I left the school. There was a sound mixer that I worked with at the school, and we sometimes swapped about, where he would record an episode, and I would boom, and I would record an episode and he would boom. Yeah, so that was, but I was mostly recording. I mean, partly I would have liked to do, I think I did six features as a boom op, and I really enjoyed it, but I got kind of pushed into recording more stuff because I don't know if there was more job offers or something, but yeah, I kind of missed that physical job of the boom opping.
Okay. So now you've left the NFTS, you've established your careers, etc. What are the principal big differences between documentary, television, film, apart from obviously time? Is it just resources, or is it a different skill set, or is it similar to what you need to achieve, if that makes sense?
So for documentary, from what I remember, it used to be a cable connected into the camera. Nowadays, as you know, it's all radio, camera, pops, so there's much more of a setup in that part. That's all I know about documentary.
And so, I mean, is there a difference in the number of microphones or the type of microphones that you would need for a television shoot or a film shoot? Because obviously you may have a standing set which is already existing throughout the TV series, whereas a film can often be a bit more up and down with sets.
Yeah, so documentary is normally you're having to deal with whatever location you're in, whatever the subject is in, whereas fiction, so features and TV stuff, is all scripted, and you have sets, and you have recce's on location recce's to check places beforehand, so to be able to deal with issues beforehand, whereas documentary you don't really have that luxury.
Yeah, I mean, I loved doing documentary. I haven't done much for a while, but I have done features which have been shot like documentaries, and I think a lot of it's the same skills. It's the same. It's trying to keep all the balls in the air, trying to keep the sound going. Although in a documentary, you're literally keeping it in the air all the time because things are just happening once. In film, you have a bit more time to plan ahead. You know, like Caroline says, to look at locations, to troubleshoot, solve problems before they happen, and control everything. In documentary, you're kind of thrown in to get what you can in any given circumstance. But I think it's a lot of the same skills. It's using your ears, using your mics, your recorder, thinking on your feet, and trying to eliminate distracting sounds as you go. And there's always the politics and the relationships between the sound mixer and the camera person and the director and so on are it's a similar balance where you have to, at a certain point, if it's not working for you, you have to let them know, and they can decide whether it's worth resolving whatever the issue is, or carrying on and filming something with unusable sound.
Which, from an editing point of view, is not good. So we've got a question from Samuel Thomas. He says, "Hi everyone, what is the most important piece of kit for a sound assistant?" But it might also be expanded into what is the most important thing you're looking for in a sound sound assistant. Should we start with Caroline?
Not sure about equipment, because the sound recordist provides everything. An assistant that's prepared, that has good personal skills, to be able to deal with all manners of different people on set. Just being preparedness, I would say.
Yeah, I think in terms of physical kit, a little pouch with useful bits and bobs then is good. Scissors, 2-pay tape, battery tester, batteries, Leatherman multi-tool, things like that, and any useful little mounts for lavalier mics that you might prefer. It's good to, you don't want an assistant who goes in to solve something and doesn't have the thing that they need about their person to solve it there and then, because you don't have time for that. And I think Caroline outlined the qualities that you look for in someone as well, that you want them to come equipped with those qualities, and being on time is very important. Something that I learned to my cost at the beginning of my career is not, you got to be early for everything, so people can rely on you.
I would just like to add, yes, being on time, and also I think it's quite clear that they say if they don't know something, they should say they don't know, rather than say, "Oh yes, I know how to do that." And we've been there where we've turned around and gone, "What happened?" "Oh well, yeah, this is how it's meant to be done." I'm thinking, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so the relationships you formed at the NFTS, and that could be with directors, producers, screenwriters, did they lead to work? Are they collaborators that you continue to work with? I mean, a lot of you have worked with alumni, but they weren't from your same year group. So I was just curious, because as a cinematography coordinator, I know that quite a few cinematographers pair onto a director, and those directors then go off and take the cinematographer with them. But I didn't know what the situation was in sound recording.
For me, definitely the people I worked with were initially, on leaving the school, with people who I'd met and formed relationships with at the school. So that was absolutely true for me.
Yeah, also for me, I think my years, there was quite a few years where a lot of people, Alvin, Michael, they literally, we all just worked together over a period of 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, for me it was in my year group, and also the year below, and the year below that, actually, if we were needing cover for each other, So if I was booming something and they didn't need a day's cover, then I'd ask some NFTS alumni who I knew to come and cover. That was really, really good. We'd pass work to each other. If we couldn't do a job, we'd pass it to another. I wouldn't say I've worked with any directors at all, but definitely people in my group and what I do. Yeah, and it also led on to my boom op is ex NFTS. I met her. Amy Simpson, she was they'd run out of sound students to do the grad films, and I came back to boom for her grad film, and we've stayed friends ever since. So, and now she's my boom up. So it's nice to have good relationships with NFTS alumni.
Okay. A question via WhatsApp. How do you artistically pick which projects you wish to commit to? How does that come about?
Okay, I'm going to answer this. So my sort of background is very art-based, documentary-based. So if it's a lot of challenges and it works in terms of trying to get natural sound, then I will gear towards that.
Okay.
I think a lot of the time it's not like you've got half a dozen jobs laid out on a plate and you can choose what it is. I think, a lot of times someone calls you up with a job and it's not like there's a lot of choice, but you probably, if it's, you suss it out if it sounds all right, if the people sound like they know what they're doing, if it's an interesting project. But it's not like every day the phone's ringing and there's an endless string of, like, a menu of jobs that you're going to pick from. Yeah. Would you agree, Caroline?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, it's what jobs come up, and also you could have 2 job offers at the same time. Ooh. And it could be that one then decides to be pushed at another date, and then one gets brought forward or whatever. It's all to do with timings of jobs and overlaps, and it's all to do with timings rather than a string of offers.
So yeah, I think you try and do the best you can for what, certainly on being at the school or at people who are starting off in their career, that you do the best job you can, even if it's a project that's a bit rubbish. You have to just look to your craft and try and make the sound as good as it can be, even if the script's naff, because that's your pride in your work, and that's what people will say. Like I say, even if it's a rubbish project, there'll be someone on that project that thinks, oh yeah, I've had calls from like 8 years later from someone who was on a production that I didn't think much of, who got me onto some incredible film later on because they remembered how I'd worked and what I'd done on that job. So I think that's just about doing the best in your craft on whatever it is, and that will lead to better things and more interesting things, and the ability to perhaps have a choice of getting creative and interesting stuff. So, sorry if this sounds a bit of a naive question. Is the sound recordist hired by the director or by the production? Who is actually forming that relationship with you and going, let's get this guy or this person?
In my case, it's mostly the director.
Okay. And Stuart?
It varies. Usually, I would get sent a script and asked to come and have a meeting with a director if it's not someone that I know already. And then it's down to usually the director that decides whether they want you for that job.
Caroline?
Yeah, all of my jobs have been producers and line producers who either know me or have worked with me before or have been passed my name by someone.
Okay. Got a question here from Nick, who's a graduate. He's a lovely guy. I graduated from the location sound course in February, but was spat out into a COVID world. Do you have any suggestions for forming relationship with mixers rather than just asking for a job?
Go
Stuart.
I think joining AMPS might be worthwhile. It's yes, it's a tricky one because to actually, on leaving the film school, I mean, I don't know if this was oh yes, it was I presume it was the full-time course. Yes, it's tricky because there's always more people around than there are jobs available. And it's difficult for us to get, I mean, I know in the past I've had more ability to get people on as for work experience or just to come and visit the set and so on, but now, especially on films, that's very difficult because of security issues and so on, and they don't allow that so much. But
when you're looking to hire an assistant or a trainee, where do you look? Where do you find people?
I think either a lot of it goes on personal recommendations, which is a bit of a chicken and egg situation, but either that or film school graduates. And I might talk to Simon Clark about people just to get a bit of background, or the people who've been through a screen skills program. Because I think that's also someone who's kind of vetted in terms of their seriousness and their commitment, and someone with a bit of experience who's going to be useful. You know, some jobs you're more able to take someone on who's very green, and other jobs you need someone who knows what they're doing straight off, because you don't have the luxury of people who just to be observers, unfortunately.
I was going to mention Sarah Putt or diary services or agent. Can I get agent? Diary services. That's a good way to, you know, talk to other sound assistants. And there's a thing called The Knowledge. Is that still around? The Knowledge? Yeah. So that'll have the list of all boom ops or sound assistants who they can contact to try and send their CVs to.
Caroline, same for you?
Sound assistants, I normally use somebody that I know, and then, like Stuart says, it's a lot to do with recommendation by people that you trust. As for meeting mixers, as Stuart mentioned, amps is a good thing. They do social events. Yeah. It's a bit difficult in lockdown, isn't it, meeting people?
Exactly. Well, I should see Michelle from AMP says hello, so she's obviously watching. So got a question from Melissa. I currently live and study in Glasgow. Do you think that to get a job opportunity, it's better to be further south, London-based? I have a particular interest in drama.
I'm from Glasgow. I went south because there was no film school in Glasgow at the time, so that may have been different. I mean, there's film schools everywhere now, but so I moved to the film school, and then because most of my work was coming through people I'd met at the film school and people who were based in London, I stayed in London. But if I was in Glasgow, I would be either, the reality of it for a lot of parts of the country is either you're going to be away from home half the time, or you work on anything that's going, you know, drama, documentary, light entertainment, corporate stuff, whatever. And I know people who've done that, you know, and made that choice, and they have their life there, and but they're working on all kinds of diverse stuff, whatever comes through, because there's not the volume of drama to keep people working all the time, unless you get on a series, you know, Outlander or something, which is you know, more long form and gives you a chance to really scale up and you know, deepen your knowledge there. But I would like to say it was different, and that you don't have to move, but from reality, the stories I know is that most people have found more work by going closer to London.
Yeah, most work is in London. I live in West Oxfordshire, and I I can commute if it's West London, but then stay. I hop to my different accommodation if I'm London. I think you can live anywhere you like, but it depends if you're willing to do lots of commuting. I mean, the hours are so long, shooting hours, or if you do Airbnbs, but then that becomes quite costly. But much easier if you live in London.
I was going to mention you can go to Bristol or to Cardiff. Bristol, as you know, is a lot of the West Country stuff there. And then with Cardiff, you've got Doctor Who, and obviously you've got Casualty and all that. So you could go to Bristol or Cardiff. And
Manchester is quite busy as well.
And there's Manchester as well, yeah.
Cool. Got a question via WhatsApp. How, as a sound recordist, do you balance home and family life? This can be obviously for any filmmaker, but it seems to be specifically difficult for sound recordists because you're often on location working long hours. Is that who wants to grab that one?
Well, I'm going to just say I've seen my family more this year than any time in my whole life.
A good thing, though.
I agree with that, but that only underlines how much time we are away from them. I think if you have a family, you either need to be rich or you need an understanding partner who's willing to do a lot of the childcare. There are some things like creches and stuff opening up and more support networks, I think, for people having families and needing childcare, but it's difficult. I think just the question about coming from Glasgow or other regions, part of my decision to live down south was so that I would have more time with my family and not be away all the time. So that was important, but it was a compromise to try and make that balance, and that the family life was more important than where I was living.
So can I just also add, because I think Stuart might be similar, I used to do quite a lot of co-productions abroad, and then at one point it was, do I want a family or do I want to stay out there? So I had to come home. But yeah, I mean.
Yeah, and I think there's a gaffer I worked with, and I try and do a similar thing, that if I'm away for a month or more, I try and make sure my family can come and visit. If I go a couple of weeks, then that's fine. But if it's a month or more, then I think I try and make sure they can come and visit as part of that commitment that you got to put work into your family as well as work into your job. So that can help.
Yeah, you just have to make the effort and spare time to make the effort to go to visit family and friends that you don't see.
Okay, another question. I have to try and word this correctly. How long after graduating do you think it took for you to become financially stable, that you were paying the bills and you weren't living on 10 grand a year type thing earnings?
I don't even know how to answer that. Oh, dear. Go on, Stu, you go.
Well, I don't know. At that time, and Ron was probably part of this anyway, there was a lot of these films which worked on what they called deferred payment, which is basically you'd work for nothing or for half of the union minimum with the promise that if the film made any money, you'd get some money. I mean, basically, I remember working for at least 2 years for nothing, and living on, very simply on chapatis and not very much else. I don't know when I sort of started to break even. Probably a couple of years, I would say.
I'm just going to say they were good times. I have to say they were good times, because you kind of thought, yeah, they were good times. Yeah, you were all in it together. You were excited. You were young. You were making films. Yeah, but we had no money.
We had no money, but we didn't have responsibilities or commitments. Yeah.
Oh, dear. So I don't know if we've answered that question.
I'm going to add just a curiosity. When you graduated, did you stay living with fellow graduates? Did you share accommodation, or? I'm just curious whether you stayed as in like a group after graduating.
Well, it was different in our time because I think we were the last generation of people who actually got grants for further education. So I didn't have debts when I came out because the government paid for my fees. But when I was at the school, I shared with other students, and that in a shared flat, and that carried on for a while after. Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat. So Michelle from AMPS is saying, hey Duncan, I went back to the NFTS in 1993, 1997 as a sound student. Good to see Ron and Stuart, as I live in New Zealand, where the wonderful Richard Flynn also lives and works.
Yes.
Okay, so got a question from Samuel again. Hi again, everyone. Thank you for your answers. What is the most difficult weather conditions each of you has worked in?
I'm going to answer this. I did a shoot called Death in Paradise, thinking it would be a holiday, it'd be great. It was all in Guadeloupe. It was terrible. The heat was terrible. That's what I'm going to say about that. The Rage mic packs overheated. You had to take them off. You had to use the fan. When everyone sweated, the sweat poured into the mic. It was horrible. It was horrible. But sure, you would have had something similar, you know.
Yes, I have had to pack the equipment in with bottles of water surrounding it to try and cool it down and keep it from shutting down. Yeah, yeah, but I mean, we're in sort of extreme conditions quite a lot. I think, you know, from jungle humidity to desert with dust and wind and hot sun, to you know, being in snow and you know, rain and mud. I mean, that's kind of the, you know, freelance film work. You're out in it, and you just have to try and choose the equipment that will be reliable and make sure you invest in decent waterproofs and boots. That's something an assistant essential kit for an assistant is have your thermal underwear and your waterproofs, because nobody wants to be looking after you.
Caroline, what's the worst conditions you've worked in, weather-wise?
It's probably being on top of a hill and gale force winds, and you're thinking, is any of this going to be usable? Yeah. You got three, 4 layers of windproofing on the boom, and whatever you can get on a radio mic. Yeah.
Lucky.
Wind on it. Gale force winds on hills.
Okay, got a question. Have you ever had a moment on set where they've shot a perfect shot, but something's gone wrong with the sound and you have to take responsibility? And how do you pick yourself up from that?
I'm not answering that.
Would you admit to these things? Yeah, I've had, well, when we used to work on 1/4-inch tape, and you get a great shot and you look down and the tape's run out and there's no tape left, and it's like, who do I confess to first, or do I just hope that they don't choose? You know, it's, yeah. I've had some technical issues and some human issues, I think. I don't want to be specific.
No names.
But yeah, I've had to go up to a director sometimes and confess that I didn't get that, and sometimes the stakes are quite high, and it's a tough thing to do.
Same for you guys. Anything?
I just remember early on in my career, I remember calling out cuts, and the AD said, "Don't do that."
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, you could. He went, "Don't do it."
Got a question from Ollie. Hi everybody. Any thoughts on making a permanent move from post-production sound to production sound? So I think Ollie's asking if he should move from post-production sound to production sound.
I was going to suggest maybe he should do some documentaries so you can understand the principles, because trying to get really good sound what you might get in post to location sound is not going to happen. So maybe do documentaries.
Yeah.
Or apply to the NFTS.
Yeah.
and do the location sound. Applications are still open. Feel free to apply.
Yeah, I think that.
NFTS.co.uk.
But I think that's a good point that Ron's touching on, because I don't know if it's all sound people here or filmmakers or people getting into the industry, but it's generally to go and shoot something with sound and to bring it back and listen to it and say, you know, usually with short films and filmmakers starting out, the thing that disappoints them the most is the sound, because a lot of people think the sound's just there. I point the camera at that and I film it and it's going to sound like what I want it to sound like, and it doesn't. And I think that's a good exercise really to shoot something, bring it back, say this doesn't sound how I want it to sound. What's wrong with it? What do I want it to sound like? And how am I going to make that happen? And if you can talk to an experienced sound person about that and analyze it and start to look at putting those things in place, because we, you know, as a sound mixer, we're sort of deciding where the attention of the viewer is in the scene, a bit like with the focus. And it's not always, you don't want to hear everything that's in the frame necessarily. And if it's a conversation or if it can be any kind of style of film, the sound is sort of leading where the focus of attention wants to be a lot of the time, I think. And that's what we do as experienced sound people. But I think that's worth, if you're starting out as a filmmaker, is doing that exercise and talking to an experienced sound person about how to get what you want so that for your short film, so that it will sound good.
Question from WhatsApp. Do you have a favorite film or television program where the sound really helps tell the story in a way which others can look at?
The Conversation by Francis Ford Coppola.
Okay.
Is a very good movie for that.
For post sound, I think Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah, classic.
Did that have any live recording sound, or was it all done in post-production? I can't remember.
I think that was all done in post. Recently I watched Chernobyl, which was it's an HBO series, but the sound on that was amazing.
Yeah. Mixed by Stuart Hilliger, alumnus. Got that in. Caroline, what's your favourite? If you could recommend something just for the beautiful sound.
Can't think. Mine's gone blank.
Sorry, you can come back to it.
Sorry, one other, which is kind of people may not know. John Travolta, Blowout. Was it Blowout? Yeah, Blowout.
Yeah.
John Travolta.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was called. Yeah. That works because it's at the end, the punchline. But I'm not going to say any more about that. Yeah.
Oh, I have to watch that. I've not seen it. Okay.
That's why Ron obviously wanted to be like John Travolta. That's how he got into sound, you see.
Don't tell about my past.
Okay, we've got Angus, who's also a graduate. Hi everyone, and thank you for setting this up, Duncan. Having recently graduated from the Location Sound Diploma, also in February, COVID is really affecting the prospect of work in the future. How do you think it will change the way we shoot in the future? And do you have any ideas or plans to deal with these effects? I think, Stuart, rumour is you're about to go back to production in July, maybe.
Yes, there is we have in, with other feature film mixers in AMPS, we've prepared a kind of document of proposals for how we might go back to work. I'm just, hopefully it's on the AMPS website, and I've collaborated with the British Film Commission or the BFC because they've published guidelines which has got a sound section in it. But I think that to summarize, there's things like proposing to dedicate mics and transmitters to actors so that they keep them the whole time and they don't get changed. to try and build mics into costumes or sew them in so that they're already there, so that you're not having to go and rig them each day. That the instructing the costume department, the dressers, if they can basically rig the mics so that people come on set mic'd, then I think boom operators are going to have to wear PPE, masks and so on if they do have to go and interact with the talent. We're going to be supplying a speaker on set so the director can talk to the set from a distance, and possibly a speaker for an actor who's not there or who doesn't need to be in the same space, so that their voice can come from the right place and the on-camera artist can interact with them. Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of measures that are going to be necessary, I think. There's a lot of talk of having zones where the set is one zone, the production office is one zone, the base is one zone, and people don't cross over between them, or only certain people can. But there's going to be a lot of sanitizing of equipment needed at the beginning and the end of the day. Cleaning stations. We're going to have kind of crates for contaminated stuff and crates for clean stuff. Everything's going to have to be sanitized overnight and put in Ziploc bags and handed out. People's headsets and comms, they should just keep them all the time and not hand them back. Things like that, I think, are going to be necessary.
So you can have an additional member on your team, Stuart, for doing all the sanitising and stuff.
At the moment, no. We've been asked to do staggered start times because they don't want everyone arriving at the same time. So we're trying to get people. So I'm thinking that one assistant will probably start earlier and prepare stuff, and then there'll be another assistant who comes in later and does the cleaning at the end of the day.
Right.
And we'll all have to do cleaning as we go along during the day.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a question that I think productions are going to have a COVID, a department, a supervisor and coordinator who are just keeping an eye on all those safety measures. But I don't know. I know some productions are talking about, because they want to reduce the numbers of people on the set. So then it's a balance between wanting to reduce the people and also but having the people, like you're saying, to make it safe and to make sure things are cleaned and everything. But I think because there's 4 of us in my crew, so I'll have one assistant who starts later in the day so they can stay for a couple of hours beyond drap and do the cleaning.
Right.
So I know in the case of Stuart, you were midway through a production when coronavirus happened. Caroline and Ronald, do you see work starting to come back in? Is the industry starting to build up? Are there talks?
I don't know what you are, Stuart. I'm at Warner Brothers, so I was at the start of season 2 of Pennyworth. So we're going to go back to that, but I think we're much later. We're going to go back in August. So I think they're staggering. They want to know if they don't have to do so much. So they're trying to hopefully start in August.
Yeah,
we only started the month, so we've still got loads to go. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was halfway through a production and not sure when that will start. Then my following production, which is meant to start mid-August, that's been pushed till mid-September. So sort of August, September time sounds about normal.
Yeah, I think there's a few big studio features are hoping to start end of June, beginning of July, but just I suppose it depends if the measures can be put in place in time and if the lockdown continues to ease, really. I've heard of people doing the odd day of work, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so we've got a question from Relitza, who's an actual directing graduate of the NFTS. Hi there, could you talk a little about how you get good location sound in situations with non-professional actors, i.e. documentary scenario? Suppose that would also go for when you've got the actors improvising on set and you don't know the blocking.
I would try and get radio mics on all the characters. Yeah, in a way that so they can be comfortable with and can just forget about them, hopefully, that they're wearing them. I think that's pretty important. Either that or you need to create the conditions where you can record good sound without worrying about it too much. You know, if you have a bunch of non-actors in a room that's quiet and not reverberant, then you can get good sound with a boom mic or a camera mic. But if you're, you know, filming a railway station or out in the streets and everything, then you need to take measures to, you know, either set your story in a place where the sound is going to be good. You can't say to your sound mixer, right, we're going to have a bunch of non-actors improvising here and it's in a really busy shopping centre and I want to get good sound, because you just can't, you know, with a lens you can decide what you're going to show and what you're not going to show, but with a microphone it just picks up the movement of the air all around it. So you, by having radio mics on everyone, you can start to focus and try and reduce background noise. But if you don't, then you're really going to struggle, and you'll have to shoot in a location which is quiet and that has okay acoustics, I would say.
I think it's really good to have a good relationship with the sound recorders and the director. So as Stuart was saying, if they're at a railway station or a shopping mall, you kind of say, well, can they leave the shopping mall, you know, or do a rough blocking so you have a rough idea. And if you don't have enough radio mics, maybe to have more than 2 or 3 boom ups. You know, I'm just saying. Because not everybody's going to have 10 radio mics.
No.
No. Maybe 2 or 3 boom ups.
Okay. So another question we've got here, which is, when you start a project, how much preparation do you do, and which other HODs on the film's production do you spend the most time working with and planning it out?
I had to do a musical last year, or was it the year before? So I had to have at least a month of preparation. Well, that's to do with the music and getting the music time coded and the earpieces and the dance choreography. So that would be like a month roughly, but that was on music.
Caroline, do you get prep at all?
One day. That's about it. And the recce's are the most, recce's and production meeting are probably the most useful for me, being able to do the recce's and talk to the location manager to get issues resolved before shooting there. Costume department, when you know something, when there's certain scene going to be reliant on radio mics, to work with them to ensure they're having costumes that are radio mic friendly. And quite often it's recce's are the first time I meet the director. So it's nice to be able to meet them and talk about things with them.
Yeah, I think I'd agree that recce's are such an important part of the process, and often, you know, some productions they don't even invite the sound person along because they don't see the point. But I think that's the time when you can have those key conversations with the director, the cameraman, that you can get a feel for things, and just you're so much better equipped than a location manager, so you can anticipate and be planning for any issues that might come up. It's just really worthwhile time for us. I think location managers very important person to be in touch with, but the costume department as well. I'd agree. I spend time with them. It's probably one of the first departments I make contact with to talk about radio mics and where we're going to put them. I'm not like Caroline. I don't wait to see if we're going to need radio mics. I just assume we are and try and make a plan for every character and every costume. But yeah, and the art department and the director.
Okay. Can you each describe a situation where you've had an incredibly technical or difficult sound recording situation, and what preparation or or how you resolved the situation? So,
I don't know where to start there.
Is there one that immediately comes to your mind where you went, God, that was a complex one to work out?
There's a lot of states sort of well, you would have had it lots on 1917, Stuart, where you're having to plan of how to get radio mic range. There's like a long walk and talk or whatever of how to get that radio mic range. That involves a lot of planning, doesn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes if you have stuff in vehicles can be quite tricky and take planning. You know, you have people. I think, there was one actually I remember now when there's two people talking in a Jeep, and they drive along, and they stop, and they get out, and they go down some steps into a house, but it's a basement, and they go through the house and out into another room and out the back way, and then they come out and to reveal some place on the other side. And it was really tricky because we couldn't get wireless coverage, so had to have the actors in the vehicle driving up, they had their radio mics on, but in the vehicle there was a pair of receivers linked to another pair of transmitters, which could be up high, so that I could receive off them. And then when the actors got out of the vehicle and got closer to me, I could go into another pair of receivers for the radio mics they were actually wearing. When they went down into the basement and thing, on the back of the door of the room they were going into, I'd taped two more receivers, which were picking up their frequency, which were linked to another pair of transmitters on another. So I had 3 pairs of receivers in my bag. So when they went down there and they went out the back, they would still be being picked up by all these receivers, and then I could pick up the retransmit. So I would be just keeping up. I didn't have to be right on their back, but I could just be behind enough that the camera could get through and everything. So it was a sort of relay system of transmitters and receivers, which worked really well. And I've actually started doing that in cars, that when actors are sitting with a radio mic on their belt, quite often you get a lot of absorption from their body, and because they're sitting down and it might be squished into the seat, putting a pair of receivers in the back of the seats and running cables to a pair of transmitters on the back of the car, possibly with an antenna clamped on the back in free air, so that if I have to go in another vehicle, I can pick them up. That's quite a good solution that's you can use.
Ronald, Caroline, anything you want to add on that front?
No.
Go on.
Okay, one more question.
It's normally the environments that you're in that you don't have any control over it, of doing walk and talks through, I don't know, busy places like Camden Market, and have no control over shops or extractor fans or anything like that. You sort of liaise with the best way they can walk through the quietest area and be able to have decent radio miking, really.
Yeah, and try and stop the music.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, the only thing I'm going to add, I mean, obviously we've all had different experiences. You've got to have more than one recording machine. In a nutshell, you've got to have more than one recording machine. There's something called a Russian arm that dries off. There's a recording machine in there. There's a stunt team. There's a recording machine in there. So there's more than 2 recording machines going at the same time. So,
and that can also be helpful. Like, so if Caroline Singh in a noisy place like Camden Market or something like that, if you can have a recording machine with a stereo mic running, with somebody just keeping an eye on it, getting a sort of sync atmos, if you like, while as you're following them through the market, trying to get their dialogue, that continuous atmos track can be used to mix in and out of when in the edit, so that you're not just adding more noise to smooth the bumps, but you're actually adding the proper noise that should be there.
I've got a question. How do you stay abreast of technological developments? Is there any expos or magazines or websites you visit so that you can keep aware of changes in our industry?
I always tell everyone to go to True Audio, T-R-E-W, yeah. That's quite good.
Yeah.
Lots of Facebook forums out there, lots, which are very, very useful.
Do you guys, before a project, take new equipment and test it to see what you can do with it? Is there kind of a prep period for testing equipment like that?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes for specific things. I end up testing quite a lot of things on the job though. Yeah, I think there's, like, obviously True Audio or Gotham Sound, or some of these rental companies have quite good articles on their websites. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't know about those forums, but everyone else I know gets a lot from there.
Ollie asks, as the amount of available channels on a recorder increases with newer models, interested to know if the panel have noticed a shift in the preference of radio mics over boom mics on bigger productions, and if so, what do they think about this? Go for it, Ron. Let's start with you.
I've got two machines, as I've sort of mentioned earlier. So my main recorder can only do 10 radio mics. So as Stuart says, I automatically put radio mics on. Then the second machine does the Atmos or the effects. But if need be, then I would then go to Ofcom and get more radio mics to put onto the other machine. So I'm always automatically doing radio mics.
I always prefer to have both, really. I think you need both, and I think if you just have radio mics on their own, it doesn't sound as good as if you've got a boom. So if you can get a whole scene just on the boom, it's going to sound really nice, but you rarely get those. You don't often get those conditions, so you have to be prepared with radio mics as well as a sort of backup, but it's not one or the other, it's a mix of the two together to make it sound natural. So.
Yeah, not everything is achievable with radio mics. For example, if people the cast are hugging or having an intimate scene or whatever, you can't do any of that on radio mics. It's got to be on the boom. But then again, there are certain scenes and shots where you can't use a boom and you need to use a radio mic. So it's or unpredictability of how they're going to cover a scene with cameras. If they're tight for time, then it's good to have both for that as well.
Okay. Nick, who's also a graduate, he's already asked a question. What are your memories of Merv Gerard? He's still at the school doing the majority of the teaching on a day-to-day basis.
I think Stuart should answer that.
When you say what are your memories of Merv Gerard, it sounds like it's kind of he's no longer with us. Merv's
he's still very much with us.
Yeah, I've met Merv a few times. I haven't worked with him because he did the short courses when I was on the full-time course. So yeah.
Who taught the sound course back for you and Ron?
No one.
Okay.
Well, what would you say, Ron? We can't sing anything. You picked up as much as you could from other students and from learning by your own mistakes.
You had to just go as you went along. It was, oh Lord.
Well, luckily the course currently has a HOD, which is a BAFTA-winning sound recordist in Simon Clark. But yeah,
Merv's lovely.
Yeah, that's cool.
He's great. He's a great teacher.
Brilliant. Okay. Most of us, when we leave the film school or when we graduate from whatever courses we're doing, we'll be doing small, low-key productions. Often we find producers don't want to invest in renting the amount of sound equipment we need.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for proving to a producer of the importance of sound and what we need to achieve it?
That is always going to be a problem, because the budget's going to be the budget, and they're going to say, well, we've only got amount for this amount of money. But somehow you have to fight the corner and say, we need this. And it is political, and you have to just fight as hard as you can.
Looking at closely, sort of break down the scripts as well, just to see if there's a big scene around a table or something, and they're all going to be overlapping, and it's going to be improvised, and you need radio mics, several booms. So, like, you can get evidence from just looking at a script.
And do you find the producers are willing to listen to you on that one, and they're not just looking to cut corners?
I think they. Sorry.
Go.
No, I think they just need educating. I think especially new graduate producers, they need educating as to why you need this equipment, and explain to them why it is required. Because they'll say, "Oh, can't you just cover it with a boom?" And then if you explain to them, "Well, we're in this particular location, we've got this dialogue, the positioning of these casts," yeah, just a good explanation to them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would go through a script and draw out any sort of preempt the thing with my, have arguments, or not arguments, but show what you need. If there's music in a scene, if there's going to be playback earpieces, if there's many people talking, overlapping, if the director's got a creative vision that they want a dinner party or a load of people talking in a casual way, then you say, well, this is what they want to do, that they all need to be on radio mics. So, and put it, so it's, if the director's behind you, then they'll find whatever's needed. And I think also, if money's very tight, you should say that you can't afford to give out headphones to you've just got a set for the director, but you don't have any more. And if the producer comes on set and wants to hear what's going on, you say, well, sorry, we had to keep it down, because I think often producers value their headphones more than they value radio mics, because they don't understand, because they think, oh, you can do it on the boom, and then you get to a location and the first shot's like a 300mm lens of two people walking and talking, and you can't get a boom on it, and you're thinking, well, I knew that was going to happen. But I think Caroline says a great approach is to get the script and justify your reasons for why you need things and explain it so people are educated, because people don't think about what we have to do to achieve what they want.
Okay. It's a nice one. Sam asked, is there any particular genre or type of project that you'd really like to do but hasn't come your way yet?
No. Yeah, a musical. I haven't done a musical.
Okay.
Well, I'll be ringing up Ron and saying, "Look, where do I start with this?"
Caroline, anything that's?
Well, I've done drama, I've done comedy, I've done low budget feature. So it'd be the next sort of another type of feature, I think, would be good.
Well, we've answered all the questions. I don't know if anyone else wants to ask any more questions, please do. Otherwise, I will wrap it up. Anyone else before I wrap up? No. Okay. Well, I will say a huge thank you to Ron, Stuart and Caroline. You've been wonderful as always. Thank you very much for coming back to chat to us today. For those of you who are interested in the sound course, applications are still open, and you can find more information at the NFTS website for both the short course. We do have regional hubs in Glasgow and Leeds now, as well as obviously the sound recording course, which is led by Simon Clark. So please do visit the website. And other than that, I will wish Stuart, Ron and Caroline all the best as they head back to work. I think Stuart's first, so he's going to be the guinea pig. So we'll find out how things go. I do Zoom in a month's time to review it.
Thanks, Duncan, for moderating, and thank you, everyone, for all the questions.
Thank you.
Great questions.
Really fun. Thank you, guys. It's been lovely. Take care. And stay
thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.